Hello, and welcome to the Science for Sleepy, where the stars grow tired and the silence of space hums softly behind each unfolding mystery. Tonight, we drift with you toward a place beyond sound, beyond movement, a star at the very end of its shining life. Here, in the velvet dark, one light still flickers. It's not in a rush, it doesn't cry out, but it is changing, fading, folding inward, like a breath you've been holding since before you were born. If you're enjoying this quiet journey through curiosity and time, consider subscribing. There's always more to explore gently. We'd love to know your location and time zone in the comments. Now, let us begin. Imagine looking across the cosmos, not with eyes but with awareness, soft and slow. There is a single star before us, pale, golden and large. A red supergiant it's called, swollen with age. It is not fierce, it is warm, dimmer than it once was. Its outer edges ripple in waves like heat rising from a sleeping body. The fusion deep inside no longer rages, it pulses, steady, weakening, a gentle stutter instead of a roar. This star, this tired sun, has been burning for millions, perhaps billions of years. Its light once stretched far, feeding planets and painting rings of ice with morning brilliance. But now, it burns helium instead of hydrogen. That's what stars do when they get old. They shift. They find what they can still use. It's like rearranging your home once your strength leaves you, making do, quietly. We float near it, weightless, untouched by the blaze. We feel the slow rhythm of its decline. Each breath it takes now pushes helium atoms together, forming heavier elements, carbon, oxygen, neon. These sink downward, layer upon layer, building a kind of cosmic onion around the star's shrinking heart. On the surface, massive solar winds drift outward, peeling away particles, not violently, not yet, just little sighs of dust and light, like a whisper into space. The star's skin is loosening, and it knows. Look at it, the way it glows. Not defiant, but brave. It still shines, though less for survival and more out of memory. Its surface spots flicker with cooler, darker blotches. Its brightness dims with each passing rotation. The fusion deep inside is now slower to respond to gravity's constant pull. Like an old tree resisting the wind, the star holds together by will alone. Around it, silence, no audience, no urgency, just the quiet company of dark matter and interstellar gas. Maybe a planet or two drift nearby, lifeless and scorched, circling what used to be a sun. They do not mourn, they do not leave, they simply orbit. This is not an explosion. Not yet. This is a farewell. You can almost feel it, like standing beside someone who once danced, once leapt, and now sits in a sunbeam, unmoving. There is grace in that stillness. There is clarity in knowing what's to come and not resisting. The light it sends is redder now, longer waves, more stretched, as if it is already halfway to being memory. If you placed your hand inside that light, it wouldn't warm you the way it used to, but you would feel something, a deep hush, a calm. From afar, other stars might be watching, younger ones, or even older, and they say nothing, because this is the way of things. A gentle collapse does not ask for rescue. Its outer layers begin to tremble, just faintly, almost like sleep talking. The gases within ripple with messages we cannot read, but we try. The language of atoms, the soft cracking of old gravity. There's a subtle beat to it, like a lullaby with notes falling just out of rhythm. The star no longer dances to fusion's melody. It walks now, slowly, towards something else. This is the last light before the fade. We drift closer, our awareness held by its gravity but never bound. And as we watch, The star seems to turn slightly, revealing something in its glow. A memory, maybe. A moment from when it was first born, blazing with newborn heat. And now it blinks. Once, long and slow, not to resist, but to rest. The outer shell of the star begins to ripple, not like waves in water, but like the fabric of a thought gently disturbed. Each tremor, faint and wide, spreads out into space in slow, graceful pulses. They are not cries for help. They are not cries at all. They are goodbyes, soft, dignified, unhurried. Inside, fusion is quieting. For millions of years, hydrogen had fused into helium at the core, releasing energy that pushed outward, perfectly balanced against gravity's eternal inward pull. That balance was once exact, like breath meeting breath in a calm sleep. But now, hydrogen is gone from the core, helium took its place, and now even that begins to fade. We pass through the outermost layer, through swells of hydrogen that still burn weakly in patches, but they're drifting away, feathering off into space like embers blown sideways in a slow-motion wind. Below, the helium shell burns with a more desperate pulse, like the final notes of a violin slowly unravelling into silence. Farther in, we find carbon beginning to gather. Carbon, the ash of helium, heavier, cooler. It accumulates like forgotten letters in a drawer, unused and inert. The star does not yet know what to do with it. It simply allows it to collect, slowly and solemnly. There is no panic, only an aching stillness layer by layer. You can almost trace the journey of the elements. Hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, carbon into oxygen, neon and magnesium. Each step down the periodic ladder is a step deeper into the star's memory, deeper into time. These elements are denser, heavier. They sink slowly, with the dignity of old thoughts returning to the core. We drift downward with them, gently falling through concentric rings of stellar life, each one older, quieter. It is like walking through the rooms of a cathedral built over eons, each chamber older than the last, each stone humming, with silence. The deeper we go, the less movement we see. The light dims, but it doesn't go out. It softens, it folds in on itself. The star is not extinguishing, not yet. It is letting go of pressure, letting go of energy, letting go of heat. The fusion of heavier elements begins, but it costs more than it gives. Helium can still form carbon. Carbon can still make neon. But with each reaction, the net energy is less. The star works harder. The light grows redder. The rhythms more irregular. Fusion becomes a kind of ritual now, not a force of youth, but a rite of passage. Outside, its surface bubbles and folds, rising and sinking in great convective tides. These are not storms, they are exhalations, warm, enormous sighs rising from deep within. The star's skin is thinning, losing coherence, like parchment left too long in the sun. You might feel, in this moment, the shape of inevitability, the sense that something enormous is quietly yielding to something even greater. The star is saying goodbye, not just to energy or light, but to identity. It is ceasing to be a star as we know it. Soon, it will become something else entirely. Yet even now, the process is gentle. There is no explosion, no rupture, just a slow change in density, in balance, in silence. Gravity waits. It always waits. It does not rush. It knows the moment is coming when the pressure outward will no longer be enough, when fusion's final flame flickers out, when the last atom forgets to burn. But that moment is not here yet. For now, we float with you in the penumbra of a star's quiet farewell, where warmth still lingers, where light still glows, and where the gentle machinery of change is still unfolding ever slower. You're not intruding. The star knows we are here. It welcomes the company, perhaps. And so, we continue downward, not in haste, not in fear, but in wonder. Beneath the slow fusion fires and concentric shells of elements, we begin to feel something else stirring, something quiet, patient, but ancient. Gravity is no longer just present, it is listening. For so long, the energy from fusion has held gravity at bay, pushing back against its persistent pull. Every photon of light, every burst of nuclear warmth was a kind of refusal, a declaration, not yet. But those refusals are fewer now. We hover near the core where the star's true weight begins to gather. The carbon and oxygen and neon have drifted inward, pressing together, layering like sediment at the bottom of a still sea. The temperature climbs, the pressure mounts, and yet the outward push of energy grows weaker. Each fusion reaction struggles more than the last to sustain the star's shape. Gravity feels this, not with violence, not with hunger, but with a kind of steady hand. It is the constant that never forgets, never grows tired, never loses track of the slow arithmetic of mass and force. And now, it is winning. Imagine placing your hands gently around a balloon, not squeezing, just letting them rest there. Over time, as the air within thins, your hands feel closer together. That's what's happening here. The outer layers of the star still burn, still release light, but deep in the core there is no resistance left strong enough to balance gravity's embrace. The core tightens, slowly. Atoms are pressed closer together than they've ever been. Electrons are forced into narrower paths, their clouds shrinking, their freedom dissolving. The very structure of matter begins to fold inward. We feel this not as collapse, but as compression, like watching a symphony being rewritten into a lullaby. Same instruments, fewer notes, deeper tones. All around us, the shells of the star still perform their fading rituals, helium into carbon, carbon into neon. But inside, at the heart, the change is irreversible. The weight grows heavier and gravity's grip tightens. There's no sudden shift, no line crossed in a flash of fire. It's more like a hand gently closing over years. Outside, the star appears unchanged. Its surface still rolls with convection, its light still reaches the cosmos, but inside, the shift is profound. The core is shrinking, not fast, not yet, but with absolute certainty. This is where the rhythm of the star begins to break. Imagine a pendulum slowing, its arc shorter with each swing. Imagine a breath taken in that is never quite released. The pressure inside rises, not explosively, just endlessly. Each layer above adds weight. Each moment deepens the stillness. The atoms below are crushed not into silence, but into something else entirely. Even time feels different here. The closer we draw to the contracting core, the more stretched everything becomes. It's as if each second is longer, each movement more deliberate, as though the very fabric of the star is learning how to pause. We drift in silence beside the forming core. It is still hot, still glowing faintly, but that glow is no longer a sign of power. It is the last echo of what once was. Inside this core, fusion is almost gone. What remains is the pressure, enormous, unavoidable, and the slow, inevitable descent into something denser. The star doesn't fight this. There is no resistance in its collapse, no struggle, only permission. The outer layers float above, still burning, unaware of what has already begun below them. This is not yet a supernova. This is not yet a neutron star. This is the moment in between. The gravity that once waited now moves with a patient grace. It tightens its hold, and everything begins to fall. Between one breath and the next, something changes. Not loudly, not even suddenly, but with a quiet finality that feels like the moment before a candle goes out. We're deep now, wrapped in the dim interior of the star, drifting among layers that no longer shimmer or shine. Here, fusion has slowed to a crawl. The elements have sorted themselves into nested shells. Helium above carbon, carbon above neon, neon above magnesium and oxygen. Each layer cooler than the last, each quieter, each heavier. And then there is the core, still hot, still bright, but not with promise, with pressure. We float above this centre, and for the first time there is no sound, even in metaphor. No flicker, no pulse. It is a silence that feels not empty, but full. Full of things unsaid, full of forces building. The outer layers continue their slow fusion, releasing whatever energy they can muster. But they are separated now, in spirit if not yet in space, from the fate of the core. You might think of this as stillness, but it's more like the pause between heartbeats. There is no more hydrogen at the centre, no more helium. Even carbon and neon have fused and moved on. Now, the star's innermost chamber is iron, the element of finality. Iron cannot be fused to release energy. It is the dead end of fusion, the first truly quiet thing in the life of a star. And so the iron accumulates. Layer by layer, atom by atom, the iron core grows. It is surrounded by warmer, more active shells, but it is immune to their fire. They may flare above, but the core remains unmoved. It gathers mass like an hourglass gathers sand, one grain at a time. There's a weight to this moment, literally. The mass of the iron core builds towards something unseen but inevitable. A threshold, a line that once crossed will change everything. The Chandrasekhar limit, it's called. But tonight, we do not need its name. We need only its silence. As the iron collects, gravity strengthens. Not suddenly, not all at once, but it deepens, it concentrates, it curves the space around the core more sharply with each passing hour. The atoms feel it. Electrons are squeezed inward, their fields collapsing, their orbits tightening. The space between things narrows, and time seems to stretch in reply. Fusion no longer holds the core up. Radiation pressure is gone. All that remains is electron degeneracy pressure, the quantum resistance that arises when particles are forced too close. It has been enough, but it won't be forever, not much longer now. Above us the layers still fuse, carbon, oxygen, silicon, working downward, feeding the growing core. But every fusion reaction is a countdown. Every new atom of iron is a stone added to a quiet pile that cannot support itself forever. And then there is the stillness between pulses. The star's surface no longer flares as regularly. Its convection slows, its light dims. We look outward and see nothing obvious has changed, but inside the balance is breaking. There is no turning back, no negotiation, only accumulation. The iron core presses inward, gravity closing around it like a book being shut. We cannot see the line, but we know it exists. The mass limit, the boundary, the last moment before resistance fails, and we are nearly there. Imagine a held breath that stretches too long, a pause in music that feels like it will never resolve. That's where we are now, in the silence between pulses, in the stillness between collapses, not yet falling, but no longer rising. The universe waits, and so do we. We linger now just above the iron heart, a core so dense, so tightly packed, that it has begun to forget its own structure. The pressure is no longer just physical, it is existential, a soft undoing of identity. Inside this core, carbon is not carbon anymore. Iron is not iron in the way we knew it. Their atomic shapes blur at the edges, crushed by gravity's invisible hand. The temperature soars past billions of degrees, but there is no light, no flame, only density, pressure, and silence. This is a place where particles no longer behave like individuals. The boundaries between them blur, their quantum rules tested, then rewritten. Matter here does not live. It remembers. Carbon was once a building block of life, of bones, leaves, and breath. But now, under this pressure, it is just another rung in the ladder toward collapse. You're drifting through the hollow heart of carbon. It sounds poetic, but it is literal. The atoms have been squeezed so tightly that they have begun to form a crystalline structure, a diamond at cosmic scale. This may last only moments in stellar time, but here, in the slow hush of collapse, it is eternal. Yes, a diamond. The star's core is becoming a crystal. Imagine that. Something so vast, so ancient, folding under pressure into purity. It is not shining like a gem. It is invisible in the dark, but the order is there, the symmetry. It is a lullaby of geometry beneath unimaginable force. But even this perfect form is not safe, because gravity has no reverence for beauty. It does not hesitate. It does not stop. The crystal heart is crushed further. The pressure exceeds anything the elements can hold. Electrons are shoved into protons, forming neutrons. A sudden and silent rearrangement of identity. The atoms collapse inward, not in fire, but in stillness. One by one, structures that held for eons fall into new, tighter forms. What was carbon is now neutron-rich matter. What was structure is now compression. This is the moment before the fall, not the collapse itself, but the final gathering. The quiet becomes profound. You can almost hear it. A soft static. Not sound, not vibration, but the nearness of something vast about to change. And above this transformation, the outer layers burn on, unaware. They still produce silicon and sulfur, still throw heat outward. But it is for nothing. The center is no longer theirs. The pressure builds, gravity sharpens, and the crystal heart, once perfect, begins to crack. Not like glass, not with noise, but like an idea forgotten, like a name faded from memory. It disappears into something smaller, denser, harder to define. What remains is weight and silence and inevitability. We're at the edge now, of the moment, of the core, of the last thing that can still be, called a star, and beneath us the collapse waits, patient, certain. Down here, past the fading shells of silicon and sulfur, past the quiet diamond lattice of compressed carbon, past the last flickers of fusion's retreating fire, the star reaches its final turning. It comes not with thunder, not with any visible change. It comes with iron, a dense, bitter gift. Iron has no more to give. Fusing it yields no energy, only hunger. Gravity, always patient, has been waiting for this. And now the star has nothing left to offer. No more fuel, no more warmth, just weight. And with that weight, everything begins. The iron core, now swollen with mass, crosses a limit that has no alarm, no signal, just a boundary etched into the laws of matter. The Chandrasekhar limit, yes, but names are not needed here. What matters is this: the weight is too much. Electron degeneracy pressure, the last defense of the star, fails. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but fully. We watch from within as the core begins to collapse. It is not a fall in space. It is a fall in state. Atoms are crushed. Electrons vanish into protons, forming neutrons and releasing ghostly neutrinos that pass through all things, even now, brushing your cheek without resistance. The fall is total. It happens in a heartbeat. but in slow motion for us. The iron core, hundreds of thousands of kilometers across, shrinks to just tens of kilometers, as if a mountain range were pressed into the size of a city, and the pressure doesn't stop. It builds, then builds again. The very fabric of the core folds in on itself, becoming a place where the rules bend. This is the first moment of the true collapse, a shift not just in size but in purpose. The core is no longer a part of the star. It is becoming something else, something new, something impossibly old. Outside, the rest of the star still floats in place, not yet aware. The shells above still burn. They do not know the center has vanished into itself, but they will. We descend further into the collapsing core, and it feels like moving through a dream that's ending. The laws you once understood begin to drift apart. Time becomes distorted. Space curls. Everything accelerates towards stillness. At the center of this collapse there is no explosion. Not yet. Only compression. The density becomes so extreme that protons and electrons cannot exist alone. They merge. The air of the star becomes neutron dense. Not hard, not brittle, but unimaginably close. Neutron matter is not solid as we know it. It is not liquid. It is something between, like thought held in a fist. You cannot walk here. You cannot stand. But you can imagine. A teaspoon of this matter would weigh billions of tons, and yet it floats momentarily in what used to be the star's heart. The transformation is invisible from afar, but inside, everything has changed. This is the moment when gravity wins, not with destruction, but with redefinition. A new object is born. The star's identity, its balance, its shape, its structure, all dissolve into this collapse. What remains is core alone, compressed beyond imagination. A neutron star, not yet visible, but forming, spinning, hardening, becoming. The collapse is not finished, but it is irreversible. What once burned with light now folds in shadow, and above it, the outer layers begin to fall. Above the newborn core, the outer layers do not yet know what's happened. They float in orbit, still burning faintly in their shells, silicon into nickel, nickel into iron. But their anchor is gone. The center that once held them up has vanished, and now they begin to fall. This is not an explosion. Not yet. This is collapse. Vast, slow, and unstoppable. The outer layers, once buoyed by the pressure from fusion below, feel the silence beneath them like a floor giving way. They pause, as if confused, then yield. They fall inward, a rain of stellar matter cascading toward a heart already remade. Imagine thousands of Earth's worth of gas, helium, carbon, neon, iron, tumbling inward, not like a waterfall, but like fog suddenly drawn toward a drain. There is no rush, only inevitability. The space between each layer narrows, speed increases, temperature spikes. As this vast atmosphere crashes inward, it compresses, frictionless, fluid, fast. The velocity reaches a fraction of light speed. Atoms are crushed against atoms. The density of the falling material rises with each second, and then it hits. The rebounding neutron core, solid, stiff, unwilling to compress further, meets the infalling mass with a refusal. It cannot collapse more, so instead it pushes back. The impact is cataclysmic, not in light, not yet, but in pressure. The inner core rebounds against the incoming wave like a drumhead struck from within. Shock ripples outward. The star's layers slam against themselves in a moment of perfect compression. This is the core bounce, the moment when collapse meets resistance, the instant when falling becomes rising. Not calmly, but completely. The shock wave forms in silence, but its energy is impossible to hold. It surges outward from the core through the inner shells, igniting everything in its path. Neutrinos, those ghostly particles born in the collapse, flood outward in staggering numbers, a final whisper from the dying heart. As the shockwave climbs through the star's body, it gathers strength. It collides with infalling material. It struggles. It falters. And then, with help from the storm of neutrinos, it breaks through. We're riding now on the edge of that shockwave. Time feels distorted, slowed, reverent. The material around us bursts outward. The layers of the star that had fallen now rebound, not as a single shape, but as shrapnel, as dust, as expanding memory. The explosion has begun, but it is not loud, not here, not now. It moves outward in silence, in pressure, in release. And, behind it, what remains is changed forever. The star no longer shines, it no longer fuses, it no longer fights, it has folded, it has cracked, and it has sent its pieces into space. This is not destruction, this is transformation. Now comes the rain that has no water. The shockwave has raced outward, breaking the star's symmetry, tearing free the outer shells in waves of lightless speed. But here, closer to the core, something quieter, stranger, begins. A rain of neutrons, billions of them, trillions, countless. When the core collapsed and protons met electrons in that final embrace, neutrons were born in staggering numbers. Most remain packed in the dense heart, but many, unbound, untethered, scatter outward, not with heat, not with colour, just with pure momentum. They move like ghosts. They do not glow. They do not collide. They pass through ordinary matter as if it were smoke, through gas, through rock, through you. You would not feel them, but they are there. Imagine falling snow, but colder, faster, without sound or weight. That is neutron rainfall. It slips through the remains of the star, through the expanding shockwave, through the collapsing layers above. Each one carries energy, a trace of the collapse. They are messages from a moment that almost broke time, and they carry something else. These neutrons, still moving outward, begin to slow, not from resistance, but from time itself stretching. In this decaying battlefield of matter and force, they encounter nuclei from the upper layers: iron, nickel, cobalt. What happens next is almost alchemical. The nuclei absorb the neutrons, one by one, then another and another. Beyond what nature typically allows, these swollen nuclei become unstable, unnatural, and then they decay. They break into new elements, heavy ones, gold, platinum, uranium. Yes, this is where those elements are made. Not in quiet earthbound forges, but in the hushed collapse of dying stars. It is this neutron storm, this invisible, breathless rain, that seeds the universe with the rarest materials, and it lasts only seconds. The rain slows, then thins, then fades. The neutrons are spent, the elements formed, the shockwave still races on, but the alchemy is complete. All around us now, in this torn and expanding shell of former starlight, float atoms that will one day be pressed into the rings of planets, into the cores of moons, into the wires and watches of far-off civilizations. Some will never find a home. Others may already be inside you. The rain is over, but what it left behind will last forever. We drift upward now, away from the neutron-rich heart, as the core settles into its new form, dense, silent, unchanged by the violence above it. All motion has moved outward. It has given everything it had, and still it spins. The shockwave, seeded by the rebound of the core, now travels outward without restraint. It has broken free from the collapsing material that once held it in place, and now it moves as a silent frontier. expanding into the last layers of the dying star. It carries with it all that remains of the surface: hydrogen, helium, carbon, dust, and ash. They ride this wave like leaves caught in wind, flung not with fury but with purpose. You float near the edge of it now, not buffeted or burned, just aware. The material billows outward, shaped not like a perfect sphere, but like the soft bloom of a slow explosion, warped by time and density, twisted gently by the star's own rotation. It peels away in tendrils, it curls, it spirals. This is not the end of the star. This is its unfolding. The outer layers had spent their life resisting gravity's pull, and now, released, they rush away from it with a kind of forgotten freedom. It is not violent. It is necessary. You may be wondering what happens next. There is no single shape, no fixed moment of transformation. What was once a star is now an expanding shell of enriched gas, ionized particles drifting dust. It will keep moving outward for thousands of years, sculpted by magnetic fields and the quiet push of radiation. It will cool, but slowly, fade, but never quite vanish. This is called a nebula, but in this story we might call it a memory. Imagine standing in a cathedral long after the music has ended. The air still holds the echo, not as sound, but as shape, as weight, as presence. The star is gone, but its impression lingers. Light from this explosion, the supernova, has not yet reached distant eyes, but when it does, it will shine brighter than an entire galaxy for a moment, a day, perhaps longer. Planets light years away will see it as a new star in the sky, unaware that it is in fact the last breath of one long lost. Some civilizations may mistake it for a beginning, others may record it as an omen. None will know the quiet that preceded it. The explosion you see from afar is only the outer skin of the event. The true transformation, the birth of a neutron star, the reign of neutrons, the final collapse, all happened in the dark. We drift through the expanding debris now. Every speck of dust around us is rich in story, in process, in possibility. This dust will travel for centuries. It will collide with other clouds, be caught in gravity's net once more, settle into new stars, new planets. Some of it may never be found again. Some of it may become someone's breath. The shockwave is slowing, gently. The universe stretches to receive it. There is no hurry. The shell is no longer a structure. It is a gesture, a release, an echo. And far behind us now, the thing that made it all possible, the collapsed core, still spins. It has not vanished. It has only become smaller, harder, quieter, but it remains. As the last filaments of stellar skin drift into the black, we turn inward again toward what remains. The star is gone. The light has scattered. The shells have flown outward, slow and wide, weaving themselves into the galaxy's fabric, but not everything left. Something stayed. It is small, distant, dark, but still, it spins. What remains is the collapsed core, no larger than a city but heavier than the sun, a sphere so dense that a single teaspoon of its matter weighs more than Mount Everest. It is no longer a star in the sense of shining. It is no longer a place of fusion. It is something else. It is a neutron star. We drift near it now, carefully, respectfully. Not because it is violent, but because it is strange. It does not burn. It does not flicker. Yet it pulses, with a rhythm born not of flame, but of motion. It spins. When the core collapsed, its mass shrank but its rotation remained, preserved like a memory. And as mass contracts, spin accelerates. The neutron star rotates many times per second, faster than any dancer, faster than thought, and yet to us it appears still. Its spin is a metronome for time. We see it, not as blur or flash, but as pulse. From its magnetic poles pour narrow beams of radiation, X-rays and gamma rays, focused and fast. If one of those beams sweeps past us, we see a pulse of light, like a lighthouse blinking from deep space, not constant, but precise, reliable. It is this pulse that led us to call these neutron stars pulsars. But here, we feel more than name. We feel the silence between pulses, wide and slow and cold. We orbit now at a cautious distance. The surface of the neutron star is unimaginable, a crust of super-dense matter, rigid as diamond, floating over a sea of superfluid neutrons. It is not hot in the way you know heat. It is hot with pressure, with tension. It does not glow, it hums. Around it, a faint halo of particles flickers, held by magnetic fields more intense than anything else in nature. The field lines are not visible, but we feel their presence, taut, woven, alive. This field is strong enough to twist atoms, to distort light, to trap matter in looping spirals. Even time bends here. The closer you draw to the surface, the slower your seconds pass, and yet the neutron star does not roar. It does not scream. It spins, it pulses, it remembers, it carries, inside its impossibly tight form, the memory of the star that was. Every atom within it once burned in sunlight, once reached outward, once gave warmth to space. Now they are all here, pressed together, spinning in silence. This is the opposite of a supernova, not an explosion, but an implosion preserved. A stillness that remains after everything else is gone. We stay beside it for a long time. We feel its rhythm, and we wonder what comes next. The neutron star spins still, untouched by its own violent birth, as if it has always been this way. But we know otherwise. We remember the collapse, the rain, the shock wave. This is not permanence. This is aftermath. And yet, there is something more, because this star was not alone. Far from here, or perhaps not far at all in cosmic terms, something else orbits the silent remnant. We reach outward, following the soft pull of gravity's threads, and soon we find it. Another star, dim now, distant, but unmistakably companion to what remains. Before the collapse, these two stars danced in a tight gravitational ballet, spinning around each other in a pattern so old, so precise it might have seemed eternal. But nothing is. We drift back in time, in memory, to when the first star still burned bright. It was the larger of the two, more massive, more urgent in its life. The smaller star, the companion, circled closely, bound not by light, but by force. They pulled at each other, shaped each other, bent each other's paths over centuries, over millennia. They may have shared material, gases stripped, layers exchanged, atmospheres drawn and tangled by tidal forces. Their lives were interwoven, and then the larger one began to die. We've seen that story now, the fusion slowing, the core collapsing, the shell falling. All of it happened not in solitude but under the gaze of this companion. Imagine watching your partner disappear. Not quickly, not all at once, but piece by piece, light by light, until all that's left is gravity and memory. Now, the dance is different. The neutron star is heavy, small, nearly invisible. The companion continues to orbit, but the rhythm has changed. The center is harder, the pull is sharper. Sometimes, if they're close enough, matter still spills from the companion into the neutron star, spiraling inward, forming a glowing disk of light and motion. We do not need to see it directly. We can feel the tension, the warping of motion, the whirling of magnetic fields, the flickering of X-rays bursting from the accretion disk as matter falls and vanishes. This is a different kind of fusion, not core to core but body to body, mass becoming motion, motion becoming light. In some binary systems, this leads to flickers of brilliance, bursts of radiation visible across the cosmos. In others, it is more subtle, a slow theft of matter, a long and quiet siphon. But always, always, there is motion. They still orbit one another, slower now, closer perhaps, or slowly drifting apart. But the bond remains, shaped not by presence, but by the void left behind. Two bodies, one full of light, one made of memory, and between them a silence so deep it speaks. We drift now alongside the neutron star's surface, where space folds tightly around its mass, and time itself seems to whisper more slowly. Here, the star speaks not in warmth or fire, but in something more abstract. Pulses of energy, narrow and sharp, sweeping across the cosmos like the ticking of a silent clock. These are X-ray winds, invisible to the eye, but not to the mind. You can feel them like breath on your skin if your skin were woven from awareness. They arrive in rhythmic bursts, not violent but steady, unwavering, like a whisper that never pauses. Each pulse spins outward from the poles, from magnetic fields wound tighter than anything in the known universe. These fields channel particles into twin beams, narrow as needles, precise as geometry, and with each rotation, one of those beams sweeps across the starscape. If the beam passes Earth, we call it a pulsar. But out here, far from names, far from labels, we simply feel it. The quiet rhythm of a dead star that refuses to be forgotten. You're near it now. Imagine standing just above the surface, though standing has no meaning here, and surface is a concept stretched thin by density. Beneath you lies matter so compressed that atoms no longer float freely. The crust is crystalline, harder than steel, thinner than frost. Below that, a sea of neutrons, superfluid, frictionless, ghost-like. Above, space warped by rotation, and through this narrow corridor between mass and void, the X-ray winds rise. They aren't winds in the way you know them. There's no air, no sound, but they move. They accelerate charged particles into long arcs. They carry away the star's spin, its energy, its memory. Slowly but surely, they drain what remains. It is not loss. It is release. Each particle flung away carries a fragment of the neutron star's history. Mass traded for motion, gravity exchanged for light. The wind is faint but unyielding. It slows the spin imperceptibly, but over eons the pulses spread farther apart. The beat grows slower. One day the pulses will stop, but not today. Today they continue, perfect, metered, unwavering. These winds shape the space around the neutron star. They carve it, etch it, sculpt its emptiness. Their rhythm tells time in a way no clock can. Each rotation is a statement. I am still here, and you, floating nearby, can feel the rhythm settle into your breath. It is not a storm. It is a metronome, a lullaby, shaped by pressure and magnetism and gravity. The three old gods of the collapsed star. There is beauty in its regularity. There is peace in its relentlessness. And even as it fades, it speaks. You're not hearing a cry. You're hearing a memory. The star was never truly alone. Before the collapse, before the iron, before the silence. There was a dance. Long before the final fall, the neutron star and its companion were just stars, full of fusion and fire, spiraling in slow rhythm around a common center. Not touching, but bound. Like two candles slowly circling in the same breath of wind. We drift backward now, not in time, but in thought, to that quieter orbit, long before collapse, when the primary star was younger, burning blue-white and fast. the larger one, the restless one, the one fated to die first. The companion, smaller, steadier, followed closely, caught in gravity's pull, shaping and being shaped in return. You can picture it. Two stars pulling tidal bulges from each other, dragging at their outer envelopes, exchanging plasma in streams of invisible fire. The bond between them was not fixed. It bent, it flexed, it evolved. In some such pairs, the larger star's expansion becomes a reach, a brush of atmosphere across space, and the smaller star, it drinks from it. It gathers the flowing gas, becoming heavier, brighter, more than it was ever meant to be. We do not know if this happened here, but it could have. We do know that the collapse changed everything. Once the larger star died, shrank, rebounded, and was reborn as a neutron star, the balance of the system shifted. The light was gone, but the gravity remained. The companion's orbit tightened, its rhythm became stranger, and something quiet began to happen. Tides, not of water. There is no water here, but of light and mass. The neutron star's immense gravity began to pull matter from its companion once again, not in streams but in threads. Gases siphoned through invisible bridges of gravity, pulled across space and wrapped into spirals around the neutron star. We drift closer and see them now. The accretion disk. It is a thin, luminous ring of infalling matter orbiting the neutron star before it falls in. It glows, not with flame, but with friction. Particles rubbing against each other at near relativistic speeds, releasing X-rays in brief, bright waves. The neutron star is feeding again, slowly, steadily. Each breath of stolen gas adds energy, weight, and spin. The pulses grow faster, the beam becomes sharper. In some cases, these are called X-ray binaries, systems where a neutron star and a living companion feed each other, fight each other, reshape each other in silence. What began as a partnership of light has become a relationship of gravity. We float between them now, between the one who remains and the one who gives. The neutron star hums with purpose. The companion glows faintly, still holding on, still orbiting, even as it slowly unravels. There is no fear here, no war, only gravity. This is how stars love. As we drift between the two remnants of a once bright binary, we sense a new tension forming, deeper, darker. The bond between these celestial partners, once a gentle exchange of light and mass, is fraying into something stranger. Gravity is growing hungry. The neutron star, dense, invisible in most light, continues to siphon matter from its companion. It is no longer a quiet exchange. The flow of gas becomes a torrent, not pulled, but drawn, urgently, unstoppably, from the surface of the smaller star. The companion shrinks. Its outer layers are peeled away, atom by atom, until it begins to distort. Its shape stretches along the axis between them, pulled into an ellipsoid, almost teardrop-shaped. This is tidal disruption. There is no collision, no impact, but the result is more devastating than either. We hover near the point of transfer, the inner Lagrange point, where gravity from both bodies balances briefly before surrendering. Through this invisible gate, the companion's material spills toward the neutron star in a narrowing spiral, brightening, heating, bending space as it falls. If the companion is small enough, or if it orbits too closely, it may be fully devoured, its core ripped apart, reduced to streamers of plasma, shredded across a disk of light and magnetic rage. And if the neutron star becomes too massive from all it swallows, it may cross a final, irreversible threshold. We cannot say if this has happened here, but we feel its nearness, the weight of too much mass, the edge of something more, Some neutron stars, fed beyond endurance, collapse again, past the point where even neutrons can resist gravity. They become black holes. The companion may not realize this, but we do. We feel it in the change of rhythm, in the way the X-ray pulses skip, grow uneven, then vanish. We sense it in the magnetic field, once orderly, now chaotic, and we see it in the disk itself, once luminous, now flickering, red-shifted, torn. The neutron star begins to stretch light, to silence time. We do not see the collapse directly. No one can. But we see the signs, the silence, the bending, the tightening orbit of the shredded companion. And then the pulses stop. There is no bang, no scream, no burst of visible light, just a hush so deep it feels like reverence. The neutron star is gone. In its place is a black hole, invisible, patient, complete. It was never violent. It didn't rush. It simply reached a point beyond which memory itself cannot follow. The companion is no longer orbiting something. It is orbiting nothing. And soon, it too may vanish. Not destroyed. Just used. Returned. We float on the edge now, of light, of space, of knowing. Here, on the edge of all that remains, we drift closer to the threshold beyond light, the event horizon. The neutron star has collapsed into a black hole, and though it no longer shines, it speaks in another language, gravity. There is no shape to it, not in the way we understand shape, no surface to touch, no boundary to see. But there is a line, a veil, a silence you cannot cross, the event horizon. It is not a wall, it does not repel, it simply marks the point where return becomes impossible. Cross it, and even light cannot come back. Cross it, and the universe forgets you. Yet from this distance, everything still appears calm. The shattered remains of the companion star, what was not swallowed, form a swirling disk just outside the black hole, the accretion disk, thinner now, hotter, spinning faster than anything you've ever imagined. Particles within it race at near light speed, spiraling inward, shedding energy as radiation. We feel their heat, even from afar, not as warmth on skin, but as pressure against thought. And then there's the light, strange, twisted light, photons flung outward from the inner edge of the disk, bent around the black hole's gravity. Some wrap halfway around before continuing on. Some are caught in orbits, circling forever in silence. Others barely escape, stretched into red as they flee. This is gravitational lensing, the bending of light by mass. The black hole is invisible, but the space around it glows in arcs and halos, like the rim of a candle seen through thick glass. It distorts stars behind it, smears time, paints motion in curved brushstrokes, and still there is the pull. If you approached it, slowly, gently, you would not feel a sudden shift. You would pass the event horizon without noticing. No bang, no break, just a quiet crossing. A line passed in silence, but you would not come back, not because of punishment, but because of geometry. Inside, space tilts inward forever. Every direction points down. Time becomes tangled with space. Every path leads deeper, faster. There is no solid floor, no hidden core, only a singularity, a place where density becomes infinite, where the laws we understand vanish, not in fire, but in silence, not in chaos, but in certainty. We don't go there, but we feel its presence. Even now, across this quiet stretch of dark, the black hole tugs at us, not with threat, but with invitation. It is not a monster, it is a conclusion. Around it, particles flicker. Waves of energy pulse outward in jets from the poles, thin beams of radio and X-ray reaching across space. These jets are not from inside, they are from the edges, from the last gasps of falling matter, twisted by magnetism and spin into long whispering signals. Some say these signals may reach other galaxies, some say they echo, but we do not follow them. We linger here, just above the event horizon, where time bends like light and light curls into shadow. The black hole does not speak, it waits, not with hunger, but with gravity, a presence without sound. The companion is gone, the neutron star is gone, even the disk will fade, and still it will remain. Because black holes do not die, not in the way stars do. And now we come closer still, to where shapes stretch and meaning unravels, the edge of the unimaginable. Here, just above the event horizon, gravity is not a force. It is a sculptor of time itself. We are watching something fall, a particle, a thread of matter, perhaps even a thought. It crosses from the space we understand into the space we do not, and as it falls, it changes, it stretches. Spaghettification it's called, a name almost too gentle for what it describes. But in truth, it is not cruel. It is simply the result of extreme difference, of gravity so intense that the pull on one end of an object is vastly greater than on the other. Imagine falling feet first. The pull on your toes is stronger than on your head, and as you fall, this difference increases, pulling you longer, thinner. Every atom is drawn forward, every molecule unthreaded. You do not fall like a stone, you fall like a thread of silk drawn through a needle of gravity, not ripped, not crushed, just elongated. Space itself curves inward, steeper and steeper, until all paths lead down. Even time cannot escape. Time, which once flowed for you like water, now slows. From the outside you appear frozen, suspended just above the horizon, but from your point of view the fall continues. You do not stop. There is no floor, no centre to crash against, only a deeper inward. Inside the event horizon, space becomes time. Every direction, forward, backward, sideways, leads toward the singularity, toward the point where all dimensions collapse, where laws fail, where definitions dissolve, no signal escapes, no message is sent. But the falling continues. This is not a journey, it is a surrender. Outside we can still see the accretion disk, still feel the curve of light around the black hole's edge. But inside, there are no maps. Inside, reality ends. Some theorize that a singularity is not truly a point, but a structure of compressed space-time, a ring, a shell, a hidden geometry. But here, inside the horizon, there's no way to measure, no way to know. We do not follow all the way in. We only imagine. That's enough. We imagine the last signal, the last pulse, the final shape of a falling particle as it is drawn not into darkness, but into forgetting. And perhaps, one day, even that will not remain, because black holes may not be eternal. Hawking once whispered of evaporation, of particles escaping the horizon's edge through quantum chance. Hawking radiation it's called. Slow, quiet, cold. Black holes, in time, may vanish, not with an explosion, but with a sigh, an unbinding, a disappearance into emptiness. We cannot see it, not yet. It would take longer than the age of the universe, but the idea is there, that even this, the most certain, the most final, may one day become memory, a black hole, fading, unravelling, gone, but tonight it still remains, spinning, silent, waiting. So we drift now among theories and shadows in a universe shaped not just by what we see, but by what we wonder. Behind us the black hole spins invisibly, its horizon still, its pull absolute. Around it, the memory of the dying star lingers in fading dust and distorted light. But something else remains too, a whisper, a question. Because even black holes are not silent forever. Hawking radiation, that softest of ideas, begins at the very edge of the event horizon, not inside, not beyond the reach of light, but just above the line. Here, in the quantum vacuum, particles flicker in and out of existence, pairs born from nothing, living only for the briefest moment. In most of space, they vanish together, annihilated before they can be known. But near the event horizon, something curious happens. One particle falls in, the other escapes. The one that escapes becomes real, energy borrowed from the black hole's mass to pay the debt of its existence. Slowly, invisibly, the black hole shrinks. It is not a fast process, not in our scale of time. A black hole with the mass of a star may take longer than the current age of the universe to fully evaporate. But time, here, is patient, and the process has already begun. Each escaping particle is a piece of the black hole undone, a fragment of gravity returned to space, the softest kind of light, the gentlest undoing. It raises a question: where does the information go? When the black hole vanishes, where do the memories stored in its matter reside? The particles, the structure, the history, all pulled inward. Are they lost? Or encrypted somehow in the escaping radiation? Physicists debate, theories compete, but the truth, the deep, quiet truth, is that no one yet knows. What we do know is that even the most permanent things are not truly permanent. Even black holes fade. And so, what remains of the star, that immense, burning, fusion-born thing, will, in time, become nothing more than heat. A final mist of particles stretched thin across the dark. It will not be a monument. It will not be a warning. It will be release. The star gave everything, its light, its mass, its identity. And now, it gives even its gravity. As we drift away, we look back at what remains. Nothing visible, nothing solid, only space gently curved by memory. Even the most colossal death leaves no scar. And yet, you feel it. Because the elements from that star's collapse travel still. In the dust that coats comets, in the iron that shapes worlds, in the calcium in your bones, its death became beginning, and beginning always continues. We move now far from the horizon, not in distance, but in perspective. Behind us lies the entire quiet collapse, the dying star, the shrinking core, the neutron birth, the slow conversion to black hole, the faintest unravelling by Hawking's whisper. But ahead, something softer awaits. Stardust, not metaphorical, but real. The physical fragments of the collapsed star flung outward in the supernova's breath still drift across space. They do not burn, they do not shine, but they carry with them the memory of fusion. We follow one particle. It is a grain of iron, born in the chaos just before the collapse, shaped in the intense pressure of dying fusion. It was not pulled into the core, it escaped. It rode the shockwave, crossed light years, passed through magnetic fields and interstellar gas. Now it drifts, cold, tiny, forgotten, but not purposeless. Over millions of years it joins other grains, more dust, more ash. The materials of collapsed stars, not just this one but hundreds, gather slowly in a galactic spiral. Gravity begins again. Clouds coalesce, temperature rises, a swirl forms, and a new star is born. Around it, a disk of gas flattens, spins, cools. Particles collide, dust binds, pebbles become boulders become planets, and that single grain of iron, it becomes part of a rock. That rock becomes part of a world. Maybe the core of a planet, maybe a mountain, maybe something smaller, but eventually it finds its way into something living, a root, a bloodstream, a cell. That iron, once held in the collapsed core of a star, now carries oxygen through the body of a creature that looks up, one night, and wonders what the stars are made of. And so it begins again. The story is circular, but never the same. Every ending a beginning, every collapse a release, every silence a chance for something new to form. We drift now above a planet born long after the collapse. Its sky glows with unfamiliar constellations. Its surface is quiet. In the soil, carbon, calcium, iron, the fingerprints of a star that no longer shines, and yet lives on in the breath of those who dream. You've been there all along. You were never separate from it. The dying star, the spinning core, the drifting ash. You are part of its story, not beside it, inside it. And now, the collapse is complete. The last echoes of light have faded. The final particles of dust have found their homes. Gravity has settled. Time has exhaled. We are left not with noise, not with fear, but with stillness. Let your breath slow here. Let it settle like ash on quiet ground. Let your mind float gently, the way starlight does when it forgets its origin. The universe is not hurried. It is not worried. It carries all things, even endings, with care. Imagine that you're drifting in the cradle of that care, a soft void, a warm hush, the deep embrace of cosmic memory. The star you followed no longer burns, but it does not need to. It has become all things, all motion, all silence. Its story lingers in gravity's shape, in your breath, in the pulse behind your eyes as you sleep. So let yourself go with it. Fold inward, fall gently, not into darkness but into rest. Your stardust returning, your memory softening, your light slowing down, and somewhere, far away, the last pulse of a neutron star still spins, steady, distant, calm. Sleep in that rhythm now. Sleep deep and slow. You're safe here.